White Sox fans should never want to back the Cubs, although an exception might have to be made if it means backing Wisconsin sports teams. Let's discuss with my guest on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, lifelong Sox fan. I've been podcasting here for over a year and a half and covering the team well before then. And also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Well, Fitz from the Barroom Network is joining me today to discuss a position he is taking, as White Sox fans should be backing the Chicago Cubs in the playoffs because you probably don't want to be backing Wisconsin sports teams. I'm also going to get his thoughts on how the season went and some food recommendations, since he should be everyone's Chicago go-to food source. And Fitz, thank you for joining me. So you had an interesting tweet a couple of days ago. So why should I, for example, as a White Sox and Bears fan, go against the Milwaukee Brewers, even if it means I should be supporting the Cubs then?
Okay, so you're asking me to convince you to do it because you're in the same spot as I am. I was going through this and observing, which kind of took on the entire weekend on social media. I was coming across the idea that it seemed like if you were to poll people who took my position, I bet there's a lot of Bears fans out there, but you kind of throw that out the window right away. But I was thinking, fandom is very personal. We all have our reasons for voting or for rooting for the teams we do. The White Sox, my grandfather, but that's not universal either. The White Sox, my grandfather was a White Sox fan. I grew up on the north side primarily from the time I was 7 years old till I was 19. I was in Albany Park. So I took a lot of heat. So if anyone should hate the Cubs, it would be me. But for whatever reason, my love for Chicago sort of came into overrules all that. And then as a kid, I started to like Illinois sports. I liked DePaul basketball. I liked Illinois football. The flying Illini, all those things came into play. And then, so there's that natural rivalry between Illinois and Wisconsin that has always just sort of gnawed at me more than the Cubs Sox rivalry has gnawed at me. Sports or teams are very personal, and to some people, there's nothing more personal than Cubs and the Sox. But for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's because I saw so much Cubs baseball growing up. And I actually went to more Cubs games than I did Sox games living on the north side. It just never affected me to that point. But I will tell you this, those 6 games are out of the year where it's the Cubs and Sox. I hate the Cubs. I don't know. It's like for whatever reason, you put the two in one stadium and just everything goes out the window, and I cannot stand them. So to convince you why you should be rooting for the Cubs over the Brewers, if being a Bears fan and not being a Packers fan doesn't do it to you, I don't know what I could say to convince you otherwise.
Okay, and the other thing is, maybe I should have phrased it better, because for me, there's no convincing, because I'm an exception that I worked for the Brewers for 11 seasons. I actually drew a paycheck from them. I worked in their scoreboard operations because I went to Marquette University. So I've got some background with Wisconsin sports because, for example, my dad, my uncle, my 3 sisters all went to Marquette. So I was basically destined to go to Marquette. So I was never allowed to even root for DePaul. The Brewers, though, I grabbed a paycheck, and not that I was there from 2003 when they had just come off a 100-loss season and improved to 90 losses. So I was there at the beginning of the dark days, the hardcore dark days, till they competed for some playoff spots. And I know some of those people in the organization are very good people. So that's why they grew on me as my second NL team. But there are some folks out there that gave you a lot of flack. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show. That was that is just this hard in the sand that you can't support the Cubs no matter what. It's either Sox or Cubs. And the thing is, on the flip side, and I know you probably got it, when the White Sox were winning in 2005, all the Cubs fans hated. I mean, hated on the White Sox, and that's the thing that just drove me nuts too. Was like just the hate when I remember in 2003, it was like, oh come on, man, support Chicago. And I'm from the northwest suburbs. I'm from McHenry County. That's some hardcore Cub country too. And I was like, I just can't do it, you know. And so I would say to those people that are like, I can't back the Cubs no matter what. Is it just that that hatred for the Packers should be more to enough to be like, you know what, I got to go with the Cubs?
Well, it extends more than just the Packers with me. Anything Wisconsin just irks at me, especially, you know, I grew up in the 80s when Wisconsin college sports were nothing. Marquette basketball might have been the only thing coming out of Wisconsin at that time. And once they started winning, like in the 90s, like getting good football teams and good basketball teams, and Illinois was on the downside then, I was like, if Wisconsin can do it, why can't Illinois? So that, to me personally, it just grew even more with the way, you know, like college sports in Wisconsin was started to surpass Illinois sports. But yeah, looking at it was almost like I was betraying the White Sox to root for the Cubs and against the Brewers. It was like, wait a second, I'm still a Sox fan here. At the heart of it all, I am still a Sox fan. But to me, my love of Chicago just sort of overrides my all of those things, and it was an easy choice. I didn't even have to think about it. I'm like, I go back with the Brewers back to the 90s when Phil Garner was there and he was getting into fights with Terry Bevington on the field. So there's a big rivalry that the Sox and Brewers had when the Brewers were in the American League that I guess there's just people that are just too young to remember.
Yeah. And how much in the reaction did you get from the people that were too young to remember? Because there was a time, like you grew up in the 80s, you know, I was a kid in the 80s, you know, early 90s, when you did watch Cubs games, not because of just even like my grandpa was a Cubs fan, but also because you got home from school, you wanted to watch WGN cartoons, and there was the Cubs. So you're like, screw it. I'll just watch the Cubs. I'll just watch the Cubs instead of Darkwing Duck. I mean, we grew up and not that they had Andre Dawson and Mark Grace and Ryan Sandberg, who were actually guys that like I could sort of support them.
Yeah, if you can't support Sandberg, I don't know, you know, then you have no heart. I mean, that guy was just a good all-around dude. And I was a second baseman infielder in Little League. So he was, I looked to him more and tried to copy his game more than anybody on the Sox, especially during, you know, the 80s. I mean, outside, you know, once Julio Cruz was gone, can you remember a White Sox second baseman? Like
Scott Fletcher?
Maybe, yeah, but it was like, it was either that or the MVP on the north side. The guy was hitting but my grandfather, like I said, he grew up in back of the yards. He lived with us. So he got me into the White Sox, and I went to my first game when I was 4 years old at the old stadium at Comiskey Park. And but just I fell in love with baseball that year in '83. With that team, that Win and Ugly team was such a colorful cast of characters on there. And so I would watch the Cubs games during the day, and then at night I'd watch. My grandfather had cable, so I could see like all the Sox games. He had on TV actually at the time, if anybody remembers that. So I was just getting both of them. I was just getting my fill of baseball, and it's a no-brainer. And in fact, I'll say it right now. If the Cubs somehow get past Milwaukee, I'll probably root for them against the Dodgers or Philadelphia, because I don't like Los Angeles or Philadelphia. Come on. It's just my love for Chicago just sort of just trumps all of my dislike of the Cubs.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation after the break, and we're also going to get Fitz's thoughts on how the 2025 season went after the break. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays. You can try player props. You can even follow the live lines during the games. And I've always been saying FanDuel's traditional money lines, the over-unders and spreads are fun to play. But if you want to win big money, or at least double or triple your cash, play the parlays, the props, or the futures. FanDuel is offering a same-game parlay for tomorrow night's Philadelphia at the New York NFC team involving Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Jackson Darts, and Cam Scatterboot, all scoring an anytime touchdown. That is at plus 44.57 the last time I checked. And if you put, say, $10 on it and it hits, you could possibly win $445.76. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, you can get the audio version of the show on places such as Apple or Spotify. So make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me, and maybe some hope. And also make sure to check out my written content at SouthsideSox.com, on TapSportsNet.com, and the Fans First Sports Network. And I'm here with Fitz of the Bar Room Network. And again, where can we get all your great content?
Well, I'm on X, Twitter at CheapSeats411. You can get all my food reviews all in one spot on my YouTube channel at FitzMagicShy. And then you can catch me on the Bare Their Souls podcast every Wednesday at 8:30. I usually come on around 10 and give some food takes, some Meatball Bears takes, and have a good time.
Yeah, and again, you're a diehard White Sox fan. We talked about it. Now, just to wrap up our conversation about, backing the Cubs over the Brewers, even though, hey, apparently, you can't support the Cubs as a White Sox fan. That's a total betrayal. What do you get? There are people out there just don't tell me how to fan. And yet sometimes it's you might need some guidance though, that type of thing. Where do you find that line where it's okay, you can fan how you want to fan, but then there's sometimes where it's okay, in my case, unless you drew a paycheck, maybe you should be loyal to Chicago. Yeah,
you've got plenty of reason to. I can see why you would choose the Brewers or anything Wisconsin. I will always take suggestions from people. I won't always listen to you, but yeah, being a fan is, like I said, it's personal and there's nothing universal about it. I mean, I'm a Sox fan because my grandfather was a Sox fan and he got me into it. I'm a Bears fan, not because anybody in my family's a Bears fan. My family, my parents and that are from Pittsburgh, they're huge Steelers fans. So I had no family member telling me to be a Bears fan growing up, but that's probably next to the White Sox. Those are my two, just diehard. I will never change, my fandom on those. So it makes no sense because we're fans, short for fanatic. So it's logical. What's logical to me will not be logical to you. And that's why the criticism I got, I just sort of brush off. It didn't bother me because that's what we do. That's what fans do. We act illogical to something we think is very logical.
Yes. And for the record, I just said I disagree. That's all it's okay to say you disagree. I mean,
right.
there are people though that just jump down and be like, how can you do that? I've gotten when I started podcasting this, oh, you're talking about the Brewers. Well, I covered the Brewers, but I was a diehard White Sox fan. So that, that's my credential. I grew up a White Sox fan. I'm still a White Sox fan because of my attachment, because my dad and I, that's what we did. We watched White Sox games because he had physical issues that he couldn't have a catch with me, that type of stuff. But, and the reason why I still stay a diehard Bears fan over, say, switching to the Packers is I actually dealt with that Packers organization, and it was like dealing with the CIA. And I worked at the Packers radio network, and it was awful. I can't deal with that organization. Yeah. But, for example, I could switch to the Bucks because they were great to me in the organization when I covered them. And my dad hated the NBA, for example. Okay. So that's why it's you can just say, I politely disagree, that type of stuff. Right. When somebody makes a statement, I don't get why we just can't have, I disagree.
Yeah, it got pretty ugly there, especially on some other threads. I mean, mine was kind of light if you saw some other threads. But yeah, I don't take it personal. Please disagree with me. I do not claim to be right any of the time. So please. So yeah, I guess we just had to fill the void. as fans. We just, especially Sox fans, we just had a void to fill, and this was front and center.
Although there are times where, and I'm going to get to the season in a second, but there are times where it's like, man, the other reason why it would be like for me hard to like even back the Cubs. Like I can back some of the players. Like for example, I think some of the guys are some of the best people that they've ever had. And Rizzo was a true gentleman because my nephews got to meet him, and it was my one nephew who lost his mom to cancer, and Anthony Rizzo actually spent some time to talk to him because of a connection that he had to Mike Moustakas. And like, there's some good people, so you can back some players, but it's just, it's hard for me to back the Cubs because that fan base can just be like, it's like, do I have to associate with you at Bears games? Cause like I had a couple of buddies texting me after that 3-run homer, where it's like, you know what? It's still the first inning. Like
First inning, right?
It's like that fan base has no problem talking so much bleep that it's like, man, there's days where it's like it feels so good to watch them lose.
Yeah, but then again, there's a seedy side to every fan base. They're just, White Sox fans don't have the greatest history, of behaving all the time. But so that again, I root for the uniform. It's I root for the city, and I root for the state, and that's just all I can say. It's in me, and it probably will never go away. I don't care how ridiculous management gets with, whether they're paying enough money for players or they're overcharging for milkshakes. I'm always going to root for the Sox, for the guys in the uniform.
All right. What is your optimism level about the White Sox after going through the 2025 season?
My optimism level is that it wasn't the 2024 season first. I'm cautiously optimistic with this. There's a lot to be excited about, but again, you go, well, they still lost 102 games. So that's 3 straight years. And you look at the last 2 managers, their first seasons were 100-loss seasons now. With Grifol lost 100 games, and now Venable. The good thing about Venable after his 100-loss season was we're really not talking about issues with him the way Pedro Grifol was after his first year. There was just a lot of like writing on the wall that this might not be the guy, whereas Venable, I think people are pretty comfortable that this is the right guy at the right time. So that's a good thing. Again, how can you not be excited about Colson Montgomery? 21 home runs since July 5th, like the second half of the year. But it's just, I was excited after the 2019 season, very excited. And then we got 2 good years, and that was it. So it's just, I'm going to watch the product, and if it's good, I'm going to cheer. And if it's not good, I'm going to, be a fan and be upset about it. But you can't help but be excited about next year, considering the way the last year and a half has gone, 2 years.
All right. So Fitz is a food guru. So let's get his recommendations for places to hit up after the break. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. And if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. That's exactly where Rougiette Go Longs comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. So your neighbors, they don't need to know how your confidence, how you boost your confidence. They don't need to know your confidence secrets. But if they ask, you can tell them Rougiette Go Long. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rougiette.com. That's RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. Again, that's RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. And I am here with Fitz, the Barroom Network. And one of the reasons why I just wanted to get you on the show is I just want to get some food recommendations for whenever I do travel down to Chicago. And it's like, you know what? I got to get the guy that has some of the best food recommendations in the Chicagoland area. So I did send ahead of kind of where I was thinking of going, just to give you a preview of what we're doing. So just going to go through some places and just get your recommendations. So where's the best place to get pizza?
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to put it into segments of the city. Because I think Chicago has great places everywhere. And again, like fandom, I think food is very personal. We have our favorites because of reasons that sometimes just aren't logical to the person standing next to us. So pizza, if you're in the northern area of Chicago, I always like to hit up Barnaby's for thin crust pizza. That's in Niles. I've been going there since I was a kid. We used to have our Little League parties at Barnaby's, and great thin crust pizza. They bring you pitchers of pop, which is always a fun thing these days. So Barnaby's on the north side. If you're in the west, on the west side, Amato's on Harlem. It's in Chicago near Oak Park and Elmwood Park. That area. That's another place I've been getting a lot of pizza from since I was in high school. I had some friends in high school that lived over in the Oak Park area. Right now, living in the southern suburbs, I love Palermo's on 95th. That's just a great restaurant to go to. I love the pizza. My wife likes their eggplant parmesan. So there you go. If you want to get a little bit of everything, and it's just a great place to sit down and have a nice meal, have great pizza. If you're in the Loop, I always like the deep dish at Gino's East. That's another staple that's just been there forever, and just love the atmosphere, and I'll keep going there. So there's my pizza.
Yeah, and you don't know how many times I've seen on social media where you have a picture of your pizza, and I'm like, I gotta get some pizza.
Yeah,
wherever I can. I like that. All right, where's the place? Where's the best place to get a Chicago dog?
Okay, so we're gonna go north side. I love Byron's. It's on Irving Park, just north of Wrigley Field. They also are the home of the Dogzilla, which is like a whole pound a hot dog. It's enormous. On the west side, I suggest it's on Roosevelt in North Lawndale. It's called Dave's Red Hots. A little history behind it. It's also the oldest Chicago hot dog stand in Chicago. It's been going since the 30s, and not much has changed since the 30s inside there. But they've got great Vienna beef hot dogs, and they have a deep fried Polish that will change your life if you want to get go off on something different. And then south side, this is I went with Nicky V's on Pulaski and 111th, right at the border of the Chicago border there, and like Chicago Ridge. Just a great Chicago hot dog stand. They got all the just the street food, and they have, I think, one of the most perfect pizza puffs I've ever had. So if you want Nicky V's, so there's and then downtown Luke's on Jackson, they've got a good hot dog there. So you can always get one even if you're in the Loop.
All right, because I know my daughter and wife like to go to the American Girl store, so that's the other thing. Like I got to make sure I keep track of the Loop, because whenever I drive down there, sometimes like they'll go to the store and then I get to walk to like Al's Italian Beef, like I did on Sunday. So where's the best place to get an Italian beef in the area?
In the Loop, I would go to Luke's on Jackson. They have a really, you can't beat Al's. I mean, I won't. If somebody goes to Al's, that's a top 5 place just in general. But if you want something different and you're in the area, Luke's on Jackson, right in the business district, there is great Italian beef and a great bag of shoestring fries too.
What about the rest of the Chicagoland area?
Okay, so north side, I have Jay's in Harwood Heights, right on where is it? Narragansett and Montrose. That's probably, if you said pick one which I don't normally like to do, but Jay's would probably be it. That to me, they got a different jardinera. It looks a little different. It's like a bright green, and kind of think it's a little weird, but it's really good. West side is Johnny's, on North Avenue. Just the beef is great for one thing, and then just the experience of waiting in line on a hot summer night, and then getting up there and being so thirsty that you get some Italian ice with it. It's just a great experience. And then south area, Frangella's in Palos Park. It's a little Italian market right where Calsag Road and Southwest Highway meet. It's a horrible intersection, and you probably don't see it when driving by, but they have truly one of the best Italian beefs that you can get anywhere. It's really good.
Yeah, those Italian markets are always great places to get Italian beefs if they've got like a deli counter where you can get that stuff. All right, what about the best place to get a burger?
Okay, so north side, I will go Charcoal Delights. That's in the North Park, Albany Park area at Kedzie and Foster. Lifelong fan of them. Grew up on those burgers. I get the double cheddar burger that it's probably in my blood system right now. Let's see, what I had is all written down here. West Side, Fatso's Last Stand on Chicago Avenue. Delicious double Fatso burger. Got to get that. And then South Side, we're going with Top Notch Beef Burgers, 95th in the Beverly neighborhood. Just a long-standing diner. Just get great fries, hand-cut fries with it, and milkshakes. Great place. And then downtown in the Loop area, you got to go to Billy Goat's. I know it's another Cub Sox thing, but Billy Goat's on Lower Wacker is where to get a good burger. Also, if you want another place, if you're not into the thin burgers that Billy Goat's has, Exchequer on Wabash. That also used to be, legend has it, a Al Capone speakeasy. So check them out. They have good burgers there too.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about where would I go for dinner, where I was going to go for lunch on Sunday. I was like, well, do I go to Billy Goat or do I go to Al's? And I'm like, you know what? I've honestly never had Al's. So, and I know
you never had Al's.
I never had it. Well, remember, I grew up in Johnsburg, Illinois. So like, that type of stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get Al's. I'm going to try Al's because I've had Billy Goat before. I've done that. I'm actually going to throw you a curveball because I know I put Euro and I want to get to that in a second, but where would be the best place to get a burrito? I just thought about that. So I used to like to get La Bambas.
Okay, burrito. That's I would say
good Mexican.
What's that?
Or like good Mexican. I just thought about that.
Oh, well, so you can get a kind of combination. I just had, it's not Mexican, it's Puerto Rico, but Papa's Cache up in the Humboldt Park area has a burrito sandwich, which is it's amazing. It's a fried plantain instead of a bun, and then it's got like the meat inside of it, and it's out of this world. If you ever get a chance to try that, see, my wife's been bringing home these tacos, and I had it up here in case tacos came up because I can hardly pronounce the name. Where is it? Give me a second here. I just want to get it right.
Looking, I think a lot of the audience is going to be like, man, I got to get some food right now.
It's on 47th Street. Gosh, she just brings them home from work all the time, and I devour them, and they have the best homemade tortilla chips too. It's just like oh gosh. I had it. Come back to that. Okay.
All right, we'll come back to that. How about the best place to get a gyro? I think gyros are always underrated. And for example, if anybody ever wants to drive out to McHenry, Illinois, you got to go to Alex's. They got tremendous.
Alex's, okay.
Yeah. But where around to get a gyro?
South side, go to George's on Halstead, just down from the park, from Rate Field. If you've ever been there, they've got great food, and gyros are their specialty. And they're one of the best ones. They also have the cheapest pizza puff that I could find around. I think they're still around $3. So, they were under $3 a year ago. I don't know where they're at right now, but yeah, there. I like, if you're in the further south in Crestwood, there's Nikki's Carryout, and I don't know what the price is anymore. But if you get the gyro plate, which I always suggest people get a gyro plate instead of just a sandwich, if you can, hold on to it, you get this, huge amount of, it's it's just enormous. The amount of gyro meat and fries, and somewhere underneath there's a couple of pitas, to get to it. But it's delicious. And then I mentioned Charcoal Delights about burgers, but their gyros are very good. If you're on the north side there.
All right, so somebody inevitably is going to put in the comments, you want me to go eat on the south side or the west side? That place is a war zone. Most of those neighborhoods are safe.
I'm okay.
Yeah, you can go to. I just want to make sure everybody knows it's not all doom and gloom. Like, again, especially around the ballpark. I drove around Bridgeport before the final game of the year, and it was fine. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I got to get up to Rico Benny's and get some sandwiches up there. The breaded steak and chicken Vesuvio sandwiches. There's great pizza around the park, and it's all walking distance, and 35th Street Red Hots. I maybe just my father was a pastor in North Lawndale growing up, so I spent a lot of time over there on the west side in the 80s and 90s. So it's just, Dave's was a place that he'd take me to lunch to all the time. So, it's food. Go get it.
Yeah. All right. Finally, what are some of the best restaurants in Chicago in your opinion? Because you can ask anybody, and you're going to get 15 different opinions. So I figured I'd get your opinion at some point.
Okay. So I was thinking, for my wife and I, when we just want to go out, there's a place in Palos Heights, Capri Italian restaurant. There's one in Burr Ridge as well. And to me, it's really just delicious food, huge portions, reasonable prices, the best red marinara that I can come across. So if you're on the south side again, or if you're not and you want to make a trip out for a really nice dinner, Capri Ristorante, I believe it's on Harlem, and it's in Palos Heights. That's one of my favorites. You want a greasy spoon to go to? The Golden Nugget is still around. If you ever got to one of those, it was like a 24-hour restaurant, and I was at there a couple years ago again, and just good diner food that you want to have. Like the fancy stuff, I always move them to my oldest daughter. She has a more bougie taste. So if you're looking for the brunches and fancy things, she's on Twitter as well, and she has some great Instagram posts. She's got a great eye for photography on getting food. I mean, you think I make you hungry, just go on to her stories and her Instagram, and she does a really good job.
All right, so final question: how underrated is RC Cola? Because that's the other thing. Whenever I see it, it's like I gotta go get some RC Cola.
It's unknown. It's just not known for people because it's just not around. I always have some in my fridge, so that stems from being away from Chicago for over a decade. I spent 11 years in Northeast Arkansas, and just away from all of the things that I would get in Chicago, and to come back, and it's now I just overdo it with the RC because I didn't have it for so long. But it's really good. People just have forgotten about it, and it's just not as available. So I think that's why it's underrated, just because it's just not seen.
Yeah, and I remember in the 80s and the 90s growing up, it was either RC, Coke, or Pepsi, and then somehow I don't know if they just decided not to market it as much, but all of a sudden it was whatever happened to RC Cola? Yeah. And then I remember being at a Myers and being there's RC Cola. And it was cheap, and I'm and next to the Diet Right, I remember Diet Right and Diet Coke. Those were the two diet sodas people bought. And all of a sudden I'm whatever happened to this? And I'm there's RC Cola. I don't know why they slashed the budget, because it is a decent pop.
Yeah, it's coming back too. I like it. They had a merger with 7-Up there for a while, I think, and that just didn't work. And then I forget who picked up 7-Up. I think it's maybe with Dr. Pepper or something. I'm not sure. They changed so much, but there's just been I've seen a little history on it on Food Network, and it's just had bad management, bad decisions. They were the first ones to bring out a diet soda. The first Diet Right that they brought out, I guess the sweetener in it was killing people or something. So that's never good for marketing or anything. So they had to bounce back from that. So they just had a rough ride, and I'm hoping that this is the time of RC now, the era that we are coming into, that they are going to have their return to their rightful place at the top of the soda food chain.
All right. Well, this wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss Edgar Caro not getting some rookie recognition. Fitz, thank you for joining me again. And where can we find all your great content again?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at CheapSeats411, and on YouTube, where all of my reviews, there's about 70 videos at Fitzmagic Shy.
All right. Well, feel free to leave comments about today's discussion on YouTube, on the episode page on YouTube, via email, lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com, or leave them at X, formerly Twitter, at LockedOnSox or at Todd J. Dub. Also, make sure to like today's episode on YouTube or leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.